Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about identity in adolescence. When you're the kid in your family that's the scapegoat, or you're the kid that's actually highly sensitive and seeing through the truth, a certain thing happens to you that comes up again in adolescence. This can affect your life greatly, and I want to help you out, so watch this video. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. If you're new, please click the little subscribe button and the bell to receive notifications when I release new videos. And if you've been with me for a while, thank you so much and welcome back. This is a different topic today. I've had an influx of new, younger clients in my practice lately, and one of the main topics is really the difficulty in adolescence as a highly sensitive person. And now that these people are in their 20s and some in their 30s, they're actually still going back into that experience to try to understand further of what really happened. And so I feel like I wanted to do a video for anyone out there who identifies as highly sensitive, or who was the truth teller in your family, or the scapegoat in your family, or the person that really could see through things. This is for you. So I'm going to talk about one of my clients that this pertains to. We were discussing earlier last week about her adolescence, and it's so interesting because she starts telling me the story about being bullied in high school for really no reason at all, other than she was the new girl, she's beautiful, she's smart, and she didn't know that she was beautiful and smart. So whenever we have a tinge of self-doubt, we have basically a sign in our head that says vulnerable, right? And when there's a bully around, you might be a target. And so we were talking about this, and it's unfortunate because she was telling me the dynamics, and I said, great. In our next session, I need to know about your family dynamics, because you're just playing out something that happened a long time ago. And what we have to understand, when we come from families that lack boundaries, when we come from families where whoever is the authority figure in the family has not done their work, has not done their healing, they're just projecting all of their wounds onto you, and you think it's personal. And this is the hardest part about healing. It isn't. These things that happened to you did not happen because you weren't worthy of what you really needed. Did not happen because you weren't worthy to have feelings that mattered. Did not happen because you weren't important enough to the people that loved you. It's because the people that loved you or love you did not know that they were important enough. And that is the truth. So we're going back into this situation in high school that so many highly sensitive kids have, where you're starting to really see yourself in the world, right? We have to understand, a lot of eating disorders and all kinds of disorder happens in your adolescence, and we think it's for one reason, but I'm going to tell you the real emotional reason that these things oftentimes happen. These things oftentimes happen because any unhealed wounds or unhealed issues in childhood will come up again in your adolescence, especially around identity. Because when you're that kid in your family that's telling the truth, that's highly sensitive, that's seeing through the veil of what you're being conditioned into thinking, you're seeing what's wrong and you're speaking out, and then you're getting in trouble for having a voice. You know what I'm talking about? That doesn't get healed, but you start to escape it when you start to have adolescence and develop and find a new sense of self outside of the home that feels better. It's the first time you might feel like you belong. It's the first time that you might feel like, oh my gosh, I'm being seen and understood for who I am. And when you don't have the support system behind you to stick up for you, to really validate you at that age, you can fall into a loss of self. You can fall into disordered eating and disordered other things as a way to cope with the deep emotions that you don't know how to heal. And so I'm talking about this because this affects so many people for many, many years beyond adolescence. It still affects you in your adulthood, in your adult relationships, in your adult work worlds, because you haven't actually healed the original wound, which is worth, feeling worth from within. When you're looking externally and you don't get that validated in your teen years, which you're probably not going to, because in school, right, there's all these hierarchies of popularity, and you're in this club or you're on this team and all this shit, right? It's just a little world of high school. But that affects so many people's self-esteem in ways that we can't get back, because it is the time in our life we need to be validated externally because we don't know how to do it yet. And if we don't get that, we walk around not sure of who we are. We also start numbing our emotions because we don't want to feel all the things that are coming up from the original wound of not knowing how to feel validated when I wasn't allowed to have my voice, when I wasn't allowed to have a boundary or an opinion growing up, right? Especially if you're highly sensitive and someone's telling you you're too sensitive. All of that. So when we don't get that validation in our adolescence from our peers, very important, from our authority figures, teachers, higher ups, right? One girl was telling me last week that when she was getting bullied, she felt like the teacher was telling her it was her fault that she was getting bullied. It was almost like he was on the bully side, right? Just like when we're growing up and our parents can't stick up for us because they don't even know how to do that, we feel like we've got no one. So this is an important thing. So this is where that lack of validation and worth comes from, right? When we can't get it externally. Now, there's the kids also, though. Let me tell you the other thing. The other scenario is you're in school and you get all the validation, like you're the star quarterback and you're all these things. And then in life, you have a hard time because this is just high school, right? Then you're still looking to continue that for the continued validation because you still have not learned to self-validate. So it's the same issue backwards. So what happens when we don't learn to self-validate because we didn't have the people around us that we needed in our life to support the truth of us? We consistently look for validation in other people, in our achievements, in our stuff, in the people that we associate with, status, in our partner. But obviously, if you're not learning how to self-validate on your own, you're always going to have a partner that won't know how to truly validate you. And if they do, you're going to be codependent on their validation, right? So we all have to end this pattern at some point. And the only way to end this pattern of needing validation that we didn't get in childhood and maybe not even in adolescence is we need to learn to self-validate. What that looks like is, this is what I'm going through. This is how I start it with clients. I have them do an emotional journal. If you've done my emotional rehab class, you know exactly what I'm talking about. How do I feel today? In the morning, first thing in the morning, and at night, how do I feel? Now, many of you are saying, I don't know how I feel. I can't feel anything. I can't feel my feelings. I don't know how I feel. How do you get to know how you feel, Candace, right? Because a lot of you have probably numbed it out. And so the way we start to feel our feelings is by being honest about the fact that I can't feel my feelings. And I'm really pissed about it. How do I feel about the fact that I can't feel my feelings? That is how we start. And if you do feel your feelings, what I want you to notice is how often you're judging and criticizing what you feel and thinking that you should feel differently. Stop all of that. There can be no judgment and no criticism and no shoulds about your feelings. Because if you do, you're again not being your truth. You're being a version of you that you think is acceptable, that actually is telling yourself the truth of you isn't acceptable. So self-validation that we did not get in childhood or high school, adolescence, you have to stop blaming yourself for not being able to validate. One of the biggest mistakes everyone makes, and I made this mistake a lot when I was younger, is I would be mad at myself and blame myself for not knowing how to believe in myself. And what I was telling my client this morning, she was so mad at herself for being in the same loop, the same type of relationship in her 50s as she was in her 20s. She's like, look, I got myself out of that, but then I'm back into it. Why? What's wrong with me? I said, girl, let's reframe that right away. What's wrong is that no one ever taught you any different. Your emotional imprint, your familiarity is this. So you're not going to do something you're not familiar with. You're not going to do something you're uncertain about. You're not going to go somewhere you've never gone before up until now, because now you know that that's how to heal. But why are you blaming yourself for being in a similar position when this is all you've ever been taught? So often we delay our self-validation because we're so busy blaming ourselves. I have many reels on the self-blame on Instagram if you want to check them out, because it's a big deal. Self-blame is toxic shame. We are shaming ourselves when we are blaming ourselves for not being able to love ourselves when no one taught us how, right? That's the first thing. So when we're self-validating, we cannot judge, we cannot criticize, and we cannot blame ourselves, right, for not being able to love ourselves. The first step in self-love is by getting really in touch with your emotional truth, telling your truth out loud, even if it's just to yourself in the mirror, owning that truth and getting really good at going back in and checking it out and consistently checking in with your emotions every single day to become that support for yourself. No one else could do it? Great. It's time for you to do for you what no one else could do for you, because now what you're learning is they didn't do it because they didn't deserve it. They didn't do it because they didn't know how to do it, and that's what I was used to, so I kept choosing that, and now I'm going to choose me. And I'm going to teach myself that I get to treat myself better than anyone's ever treated me. That is very validating for your inner child who's watching you treat you a certain way. When you start treating yourself incredibly, your inner child integrates with you as you heal these wounds because it trusts you. It chooses you because you're choosing you. And then what happens is you start to line up with the universe, right? The universe supports who supports their true self. And then your purpose becomes you. So, this is what we have to understand about highly sensitive kids. They have a tough time. They need to be taught how to self-validate. And if you're a parent watching this, you can teach your children how to self-validate by validating the shit out of every emotion that they have, whether you agree with it or not. There's no judging. There's no criticism of emotions. And we have to allow them to feel and not take it personally. So I hope this video finds you well. I hope you share it with at least one other person that you think it could help. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Don't forget, emotional rehab starts again June 1st. So we are opening for enrollment. Don't forget, my webinar is coming at the end of April. I will be mentioning that again. I hope you guys can attend, and I hope you guys are there to comment and support. I love you guys so much. I hope you have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you soon.